Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Western Gallery of Western Washington University. My name is Tammy Landis, and I am sitting here with Julia McIntyre. Did I say your last name right?
Yeah, McIntyre. Yeah.
McIntyre, perfect. And we are sitting in front of Julia's body of work that's here in the exhibition showcasing all of the BFA thesis works of 12 artists who have completed their BFA year. And this exhibition is called Material Mind. We came to this title as there were themes throughout the works, but I have to say everyone's work is very individualized, individually pursued, and installed completely on their own and not in relationship to the others. But Julia's in particular is very rich in what materials and process she's decided to use, and I'm excited to dive into that today. So again, welcome to our conversation with Julia today. This is a part of our BFA Artist Talk series here at the gallery. My name is Tammy Landis. I'm the museum educator here and also curator of this exhibition. And we're going to go ahead and dive right in with Julia because there's a lot that I want to unravel through our conversation, and I hope that you all get to experience that through this conversation. And one more thing, we're going to be chatting for about 20 minutes or so. And during that time, if you think of a question or want to know more about something that maybe Julia mentioned that we didn't elaborate enough on, please make a note in the Q&A if you're joining us on Zoom. And we will come back to that question towards the end of our conversation with about 10 minutes left. So it can be anything, asking about the future, asking about the BFA experience for Julia, anything at all. We'd be happy to dive in further. So, all right, let's jump right in. So we're sitting, by the way, in a partition spot of the Western Gallery. So we're surrounded by everyone else's work, but Julia kind of has this corner space that you've decided to create your installation in. So you're only seeing Julia's work behind us. So can you break it down for us? What are we looking at right now? And tell us a little bit about the materials that are in front of us.
Yeah, so this is my installation entitled 2005, which was the street address of the house that I kind of conceptually decided to focus on. So I took various visual components from that structure and kind of created my own installation from that. So there are three different, I'm a printmaker, so there are three different types of printmaking in this installation. The wall is covered in screen printed rubbings that I exposed from rubbings I took of the woodwork in the house. The windows that you see are relief printed onto the glass, And then on top of the crown molding up there are stone lithographs on handmade kozo paper.
Amazing. Lots of layers, you know,
Definitely.
and as you're talking about all the different processes, I know that a lot of this is also wrapped around memory for you, because it was your childhood home that we're focusing on in this, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. This idea of layering all these different elements together. How does that conceptually create the work that you wanted to accomplish here?
Yeah, definitely. I think with layering and also with the repetition kind of the imagery in the work, that's kind of how I chose to convey the concept of memory, because that's how I experienced that. And especially, you know, not living in the house for a long period of time, it's kind of like I get these maybe more like fragmented, kind of layered, abstract glimpses into maybe certain images or feelings or memories within the home, rather than like a holistic, realistic view.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we don't get a perfect view. We're getting like interesting glimpses, and it all comes together to create your personal memory. I mean, so I think what's really interesting here, and you see this a lot with artists who are addressing identity and personal space and memory, is we're getting a very personalized view into your memory. We're not, like you mentioned, getting a perfect view of your home. We're getting a tactile glimpse of the places and parts of it that are significant to you. So thinking through the tactile, I want to talk about the rubbings on the wall. And my colleague Chris has some slides, I know, that we can show our audience that show a bit more of this detail. So on the back wall here, you see these faint rubbings of architectural frames from your childhood home, right?
Yeah.
So I like to think about Julia, you know, I like to think about you being in the home right before your parents were moving on to either selling or renting it, before it was out of their hands. And you furiously going in there and trying to grasp the space, right? And so you decided to do that by rubbing, and then translated that into a printmaking process. So maybe take us through why you decided to do rubbings of the space. Like, what did that mean in terms of holding on to that space through that technique?
Yeah, I would say I was originally inspired to do rubbings, looking at like Dohosa's work, and thinking about how he was able to recreate spaces through rubbings. But I wanted to focus particularly on the oak woodwork in the first floor of the home. And I don't exactly know why. It's interesting to me. And I don't know, I just kind of like decided to go back into the house for like the last time, and brought a huge roll of tracing paper and just made as many rubbings of this like oak woodwork as I could. When you walk into the home, there are like these two huge archways on your right and left that kind of lead to the rest of the house. And I think now, like looking at the work completed, I'm able to kind of better understand the significance of that woodwork specifically. And like, I'm able to kind of see little details within it, like imperfections of maybe where something was kind of like pulled on over the years, or my brother came and visited and remembered trying to jump up to touch the archway and breaking his arm. So I just kind of gravitated toward making rubbings of that particular woodwork without really knowing why, I think, until the process was kind of completed.
That's amazing. It's like the wear and tear of that specific frame within the house reveals even more memory to it. So to us, it's just like lines, but to you, this brings you right into a specific space. And you start flooding all these memories as you just did. That's really powerful. And I think that's a really successful part of your work that maybe as viewers, we won't grasp, but those that are listening in are, you know, getting that view. So hearing you share that a bit more, you know, about the space you went to and the places you decided to emphasize in your work was a portal, you know, like a doorway. And in your installation, you also decided to use windows. You strip them from their function. We're not using them as a window, you know, to look into an interior and exterior. We're kind of stripped away from even that. You know, there's no dedicated interior exterior. So talk us through, you know, these architectural features, but specifically the window frames and what's printed on them and what is that communicating for you?
Yeah, so I've always been really obsessed with power lines because I think they each kind of have their own signature, sort of. And with these specifically, this is an image of the power lines outside my childhood home. And I don't know, even when I was kind of making the prints, I felt a little bit removed from it. And then especially seeing them repeated and in different orientations, I kind of feel present on the street or inside looking out, depending on the orientation. And yeah, I chose the power lines because they felt like a very specific reference to that, you know, street and that home. Because I mean, I don't know if this is true, but my understanding is that, you know, no two like telephone poles with sets of power lines anywhere in the world are going to be exactly like this one. You know,
it's unique. And I remember when I first was looking at your work and we were chatting a while ago in February about the prints that you were doing on these panels. And I recognize power lines. But then you started drawing all these other themes out of it from your personal viewpoint as a child and today to see the same power lines. But you also brought up the idea of human connection between power lines and how that's an interesting part of this. So, you know, coming full circle, human connection, you're taking your memories and you're now putting it on display in an exhibition and sharing it with people. What is that like for you now to like come into the gallery? Because I know I've seen you in here a few times.
Yeah.
What is it like to see people experiencing this for you? Like, what do you feel like, or I don't know, describe how that is for you.
Oh, it's really interesting because the majority of the people that see this piece have never been in the space that I'm referencing.
Yeah.
With the exception of my brother, which was a really powerful experience. So I think whether you know, grew up in this house or have been in it or not, you know, maybe your experience with it is a little different, but I still feel like there's something kind of some sort of universal understanding within that of seeing the space and kind of understanding it to be a home.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to further Julia's notions of the home, I don't remember if there's an image here, Chris, that you have, but I think it might be visible on one of our views of the camera, but you chose to put molding like at the top of your installation to further that domestic feel. So Julia has thought of many things in relationship to this installation of building that idea of pieces of a domestic architectural space, let alone the framing. I mean, you could have just left the prints on their own on the wall, but I think all these pieces are coming together to start bring together a fragmented memory like you've talked about.
Right.
So let's take a step back. So for those of you that some of you might know, the BFA year is a year-long problem.
Yeah.
A process program. You have to apply. It's competitive to get in. You know, there's only a selection of people that make it. And you did it, you got in, and now here's the fall of last year. What did you come into the fall thinking you were going to be doing? What were you working on up until then? And how did this work evolve?
Oh my gosh, so much. Definitely, I mean, I've known that I'm a printmaker for quite some time, and that's been my major the whole time I've been at Western. And so I knew I wanted to pursue printmaking, but I didn't really want to. I didn't really want to just like make a small like collection of prints necessarily. I wanted to do something for the space. I think I was especially inspired by last year's cohort show, which was up in the fall when we were starting the year, and seeing how many artists, printmakers included, decided to really focus on the space of the gallery and creating these installations. I had never done any sort of 3D work before, really, or maybe for a foundations course, but never exhibited any 3D work because I didn't feel comfortable with it. So I think I did kind of go into it knowing that I wanted to kind of push myself in that direction a little bit, but it evolved a whole lot.
Yeah. So, what the work that you submitted even, for the BFA year, like what did that look like compared to what we're looking at here?
It was all works on paper.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all printmaking, but it was all on paper
Interesting.
and smaller scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that, you've accomplished a more three-dimensional experience of printmaking, people can move around within this, which is great. And you probably won't be able to see it, those of you that are watching in, but there's like little subtle movements of the windows, and it creates kind of this eerie feeling. Again, kind of like a memory. It's slightly moving. But having accomplished now this installation, you've put it up. What was something really big that you gained by installing and completing this installation? Was there anything that surprised you, or you now know moving forward you definitely want to do, or you don't want to do again, or what has this installation taught you in terms of process and installing?
So much. I don't know if I could say either way if I want to make a big installation again or not. I definitely learned a lot from it.
Okay.
It taught me that I think my main kind of concern going into the year was wanting to combine different types of printmaking and kind of different ideas into one body of work. Because I feel like, I had made maybe collections or series of prints before, but I wanted to do something bigger and more layered. And I feel like I want to continue to go in that direction. I don't know if I'll do exactly something like this again, but it taught me a lot about just what I'm capable of, really.
Good.
Especially like seeing it all come together the last day of installation. I had made each of these components kind of throughout the year and didn't really know exactly how it was going to look until it was up.
Right. Like I think when we chatted in February, it's like, I think I might have this, I don't think it actually all comes together until you're finishing in the installation an hour before it needs to be done.
For sure.
Right. Like the gallery's opening the next day. That's when, the big crunch time was. And, this is your first time exhibiting your work in a larger gallery space, in a more professional gallery setting too. So with that being said, how do you think about the future, with your career, with your interest? Do you want to continue moving and making art? Do you want to move away from Bellingham to do that? Like, what are your thoughts for the future?
It's exciting.
Yeah.
I think especially after this experience, exhibiting in like a larger, more professional gallery kind of setting, it's really rewarding and it's really exciting to see my work on this scale. And going into the year, I was definitely interested in pursuing an MFA. And I think especially after this experience, that's definitely what I'm leaning towards. I know a lot of the printmaking programs are outside of the area, so that'll probably be kind of the direction I move in, but we'll see.
I can't help but think, and some of you might be familiar with residencies that are all over, but I feel like you'd be a great candidate for a residency in printmaking, which you see in different print shops from all over. But usually printmaking residencies, at least from my understanding, they love the experimental and the fact that you have 3 different techniques here in this installation. I feel like you'd be a star resident to come in and just play around with what they have and be able to teach, their community. So just something to keep in mind, residencies. Definitely. And those of you that are in, getting your undergraduate degree in art right now, residencies are huge for emerging artists. And so for you to step out of this and be able to keep an eye out for residencies is definitely one way to support yourself, but get yourself known, because usually there's galleries attached to that. There's so much. So it'd be fun to see you accomplish, some of those things.
Oh yeah, there's some cool ones out there.
Yeah. So I am thinking about our audience, and I know that there are students watching that might be interested in the BFA program. What's one advice you would give to a student or someone who might be interested in this? Maybe someone specifically in printmaking or general, if you want.
I would say the most important thing for me, which my committee members also really pushed me to do, is a lot of experimentation. I didn't go into the year knowing exactly what I wanted to do. And I think that was really helpful, and just kind of allowing the materials to maybe speak for themselves and kind of guide me in the direction that they're kind of pushing me in, I think was really key for me.
Was there anything in particular that was most challenging for you for the BFA year?
Gosh.
You can be honest.
I mean, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work. And
you dealt with a pandemic,
yeah.
So your cohort has been restricted greatly by not having your typical BFA experience.
Absolutely. Right? I do feel really lucky that I've been able to have access to campus, and I've had, wonderful studio mates that I've been able to work with. I've definitely learned that I work better, in a studio space with other people. And I know that a lot of other students haven't gotten that opportunity this year to be on campus as we have. So I feel really, really lucky for that. But yeah, it's still been really tough to not see as many faces around, not being able to grab food around campus when you're hungry. And then on top of that, just like the workload of the year as well. Yeah, it's been tough, but rewarding.
Yeah, meeting those deadlines, the various, maybe share about your experience with all the reviews that you have to do. I mean, you're constantly talking about your work. What did you gain out of that?
Wow, yeah. I mean, I had to meet with my committee members every other week, and kind of present everything either in an in-person format or by sharing my screen on Zoom. I had to present, which is different and actually maybe more intimidating. Having to present, every single thing that I've been drawing or reading or thinking about, or different experimentation that I maybe don't feel is resolved, but that my committee is wanting to see. I definitely learned that those things are valuable too. It's not just about the resolved work. It's about sharing kind of every aspect of your process, and having these advisors to kind of help guide you through the things that aren't working, which was kind of scary for me, because I often just want to show the things that I feel proud of.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to reveal all sides of it.
Yeah.
You got to expose all of that. Yeah,
right.
It's a huge part of being able to accomplish and get to this point, which I'm sure it's still a little surreal to realize you're sitting here, it's done.
Yeah.
And you're going to be graduating, which is really exciting. So I wanted to ask, in particular, your work is very personal. And I feel like I see this theme a lot with emerging artists, not just BFA, but also MFA and early career artists. I see this trend in really deep identity work within your bodies of work, no matter what you're working on. And what do you think it was for you that fueled you? I know you've shared a little bit about it, but why come to a body of work that's so significant to your identity and who you are versus just something that's aesthetically pleasing, to show off maybe the different printmaking techniques you used? You could have done something completely different, but you chose this. Why personal memory work for you?
Yeah, I think memory for me has always been really significant in my life. I lost my father when I was really young, and just kind of find myself like clinging to, memories from early childhood and even on through adolescence. And I kind of knew that I wanted to conceptually focus on that experience and what that's been like for me. And I also knew that just visually, I gravitate towards a lot of kind of like architectural imagery. I'm really interested in color. So I really wanted to find a way to kind of marry all of those things. I think that the concept of memory was very important for me, and it was almost about finding a way to make the materials work and make the imagery work with that.
I think that's really successful about one thing that I think is really successful about Julia's work, you know, you just shared loss was a big impetus for you in creating this body of work. And it's not that you showed representation of your father necessarily, but you've gone to the spaces where you like grab onto those memories of him. You know, you didn't decide to do figural, you decided to do domestic architecture. And I should add, you know, it's not shown in this work necessarily, but I remember when we had our studio conversation in February, you had a lot of drawings and illustrations of homes. Some were of yours, but like of others that you were drawn to. So clearly that is a strong, you know, drive for you is the domestic and the domestic space. And there are other artists, and our audience will see, you know, in some of our other talks, there's other artists that are addressing that as well. But I just wanted to say, I believe it's really successful in how you've achieved that clinging to memory through architectural spaces, because we can relate, right? So I think one of the last questions I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, what do you hope someone gains, you know, as they come in here and they move through your work? Like, what purpose do you hope for this body of work, and how, when you think about people coming in and experiencing it, what do you hope that they walk away feeling or experiencing or thinking through?
I think maybe what's always driven me to make art is wanting to connect with other people, kind of going back to the power lines thing, and wanting other people to kind of get a glimpse into my experience and be able to relate to that, even if they, you know, don't know, you know, haven't seen the specific window that I'm referencing or something like that, you know, that people are able to kind of walk through the installation and maybe some of their own memories come up.
I remember, you just reminded me, you know, when you look at these and how it can be a universal image for some of us, right? Power lines. I mean, truly anywhere. And most places around the world, we can all find power lines. I remember wanting to call them passing landscapes in an original version. I don't know if this ended up in my essay or not, but I felt like when I was looking at the power lines, it felt like I was just grasping a moment of something. And so I feel that strongly in this, you know, it's a passing landscape of a place for you, a past place, and you're grasping onto that. So I love that human connection and wanting, you know, people to be able to draw their own, but in the end, this is a very personal body of work for you.
Totally.
Congratulations, Julia. I think this is a really successful body of work, especially propelling you forward into your career. It's exciting to see where you are now, but, you know, fun to envision where you might be in about 5 or so years. So congrats on completing this.
Thank you.
And getting your BFA year out of your way and moving forward. And thanks for coming and chatting with me today and having this artist talk. It's nice to further learn more about you and your body of work.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Tammy.
So thank you for those of you who have queued in today and followed along with us during this rich conversation with Julia. I hope it's been as exciting for you as it was for me, you know, to glean so much more. And please do come visit the gallery in person and come experience these pieces and move throughout these windows and kind of get a sense of that home that Julia is wanting to express in this body of work. And to do so, look at our website, westerngallery.wwu.edu, and make an appointment and come on in and see this exhibition alongside Julia's work in particular. So thank you, Julia. And please do queue into our other artist talks. We have one right now about to follow up after this. So I hope you're registered for that as well. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.